Welcome back, friends. Thanks again for joining us for another episode as we continue studying through the Word of God together. We're glad you're with us and hope the next few minutes will be help and encouragement as we continue our study through the book of Hebrews. If you're following along with us, we are in Hebrews chapter 12. And again, especially as you're finishing up chapter 11, moving into chapter 12, we're going to look at today some of the more familiar passages. I'm sure, rightfully, that you've heard maybe several messages on this. If you've been around church on these few verses today, as really it is a concluding thought. It starts off verse 12, chapter 12, verse 1 says, therefore, and in a simple principle, we talk about the idea of biblical interpretation. If you ever see the word therefore, you go back and find out what it was there for. And so you go back, and so really you've got a concluding thought. Please remember, as we evaluate these books of the Bible we go through, we say this frequently, that the verse and chapter divisions are not inspired in and of themselves. These were letters, just one long letter written to the church. Later on, a preacher broke them up into chapter and verse divisions for the purpose of making it easier for congregants to follow him before we have what we now know as kind of the completed Bible. But what we're looking at is the idea that chapter 11 and chapter 12 it's just one thought continuing through. So he gives the explanation of what we call the heroes of the faith. He gives the explanation and a lot of challenges of different men and women who, one unique thing about it, we're not perfect. Many times we're known for great sin, and yet God used them and placed them in the hall of faith. And so we get to chapter 12. What he's doing is he uses the word therefore, and he's moving from, we've been speaking about the historical figures, the biblical figures that lived a life by faith. Remember chapter 11, the beginning says, without faith, it's impossible to please him, to please God. So with that same premise in mind, as he's challenging this church to grow in maturity, he gets to chapter 12 and he says, we've settled this, therefore, let me challenge you. And that's what we're going to look at for the next few minutes. His challenge to the church, his challenge to us in Hebrews chapter 12. Starts off in verse 1. He says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. And so the first thing he starts off is, we have been surrounded by these witnesses. Who are these witnesses? These witnesses are the people referenced in chapter 11. All of these people who did these things, who lived that way, who are known by living by faith, are now witnesses, are in heaven witnessing what we are doing. They're watching what we're doing. We are their heritage. They are our ancestors. We are their heritage. And now we, due to their example, are challenged to live in that example. So they're the witnesses. They're the ones watching. Now we can talk about, some have said this means the other people around us, other church members, our family. And while that's a great amount of witnesses, this is specifically speaking of those referenced in chapter 11. So here's the point with that. When you have a witness, one of the things that's unique in this, when you say, we've seen people do it, it gives us a reminder we can do it. You ever been in a scenario where you're challenged to do something, and frankly, it might be a tad bit nerve-wracking to do it. It might be nerve-wracking because you've never done it. You're afraid what will happen, and it's easier. Someone else did it. They survived it. They didn't get hurt. All these things. It's easier to do something when you've witnessed somebody else do it. We can live by faith in this day because we have seen people in other days, and sometimes more complicated times, living by that same faith. And because of that, that's what we hold on to. That's the challenge he's giving to us. Because of the witness, because of the example, you can do this. And so he continues in verse 1, because we're surrounded with this great cloud of witnesses, then he challenges us, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and run with endurance the race that is set before us. There are three challenges given to us in this verse, and they're unique in themselves. Each and every one of them are specific things we need to learn. The first thing he says, let us lay aside every weight. Now notice he's not referencing sin. He'll do that next. He is saying, lay aside every weight. This would be something that to an extent would slow us down. Understand this. This is not something that is a sin. It's not something that isn't necessarily wrong or bad. It's just something that might slow us down in our Christian journey. I'll give an example. Work. Work is an absolute necessary thing. I think it's a wonderful thing. We all need to do it. And there are times and seasons when we are busier and it takes our schedule. But here's the question. Is work keeping us so busy that we're not around family? Is work keeping us so busy that we can't be in church? Is work keeping us so busy that we can't do the things that God has stated are higher priority? Well, if it is, then I need to change my work schedule. Now again, when I first got married, I was going to college at grad school plus working. So work was necessary to pay the bills. I wasn't as home then as much as I am now. There are seasons of it, but here's the key. It didn't keep me. I was still in church, so doing my best in these certain areas. It wasn't a weight at that time holding me back. There are certain things in our life could be weights. Here's an example. God is teaching us the importance of Sabbath, the importance of making sure we rest. Well, you can go so far into the rest that you become lazy. That would be something good. It's a weight. Now, here's the illustration he's giving. As an author here, that's why it's one of the reasons some people believe it's Paul. Paul often uses racing and these type of things in illustrations in other books, and here it's happening again. But the author here references running a race. When people, even today in racing, a lot of times what they'll do to exercise to get stronger is they'll put weights on their ankles. They'll put weights on their body. They'll wear a weighted vest, and they'll run around with these things, exercising, and so that way when they take them off, they're faster. Well, obviously, when you've watched a race, they're not wearing the weights anymore. They're actually putting on as little as they can to be as fast as they can. There are things in our life that aren't necessarily bad, but when it comes to running the race for God, we've got to make sure that while they're in our life, they are not so heavy, they hold us back from doing what God has told us to do. Our priority, Matthew 6:33, seek those things, seek the things which are above, go to Him first, and then all these things will be added to us. This is the premise. Our priority is on the things of God first. And then God takes care of all these other details. So please understand, we got to work. We got to do those things. But what are some things in our life that are not necessarily bad, but might be anchoring, holding us back from running this race the way we're supposed to? So we lay aside. Notice in all of these, it's a command for us to do. It's an active voice. We choose to do it. We lay aside every weight, and then again, as he continues, the idea of laying aside, we lay aside the sin which clings so closely to us. Notice he's saying laying aside this weight. Some call it this besetting sin. Each and every one of us have a sin in our life. We know that just clings to us. That it seems like the one thing that we can't seem to break. Sometimes we know it's there, and it becomes something we think we can control. We think it's not really going to hurt me. It's not going to hurt someone else. It's not that big of a deal. And we, to an extent, hold on to it. That's why the author says, lay it aside. Lay aside the sin. Yeah, just like the weight, lay aside the sin. It's a sin you know is there. It's a sin you know the power it's having on you. You know the influence it's having on you. And he's saying to you, lay that sin aside. We all have a sin like that. We know it's there, but for whatever reason, we just kind of let stay in our life for whatever reason. And I'm not going to start naming those sins. Holy Spirit will tell you which one he's referencing in your life, but that's the premise. Lay aside the weight, lay aside that sin that's holding us back. And then he tells us to do a third thing, run with endurance this race that is set before us. Run with endurance. One, we have to run. We have to participate. You can sit in the sideline and watch, but the problem is there's a race set before us. Okay, you're not running someone else's race. You're not doing the same thing someone else in your church has done. You're not doing the same thing as the pastor, the deacons, or the teacher in your Bible class, your small group leader, or someone who's brand new to church. Every one of you are running your own race that God has put in your life, your purpose, your plan, what God has got for you. So run it. First, he tells you to run it. Get out and run it, but run with endurance. It's not, and you know what that means? There's going to be times it's going to be difficult. There's going to be times when life and Satan and things come in that make you want to quit. Run with endurance. Do not quit. Run with this race that is set before you, your particular race, which means the battles in it are going to be unique to you. So I'm laying aside the weight, I'm laying aside sin, and I'm choosing to run with endurance. I'm not quitting this race that God has given to me. And by the way, if God has given me a very particular race, that means he's also equipped me to handle that race. Now, I understand, I don't know that right now. That's why I'm close to God. That's why I'm walking with God. That's why I'm in prayer, because I am growing and developing in me what God has put in me so that I can run that race well. So as Paul said in Philippians, I'm working out my salvation with fear and trembling. I'm exercising. I'm developing in me what God has equipped me. He's giving me what I needed, but I have to develop it. So I'm running with endurance. I'm developing for this particular race he's put before. So then he says with another challenge in verse 2, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith. So our focus, that's the key. I run with endurance because I have my focus. My focus isn't on getting rich. My focus isn't on the things of the world. There's nothing wrong with some of those things, but my focus is Jesus. Now, if God allows me to enjoy those things on earth, great, wonderful. And he gives it to me so I can use it to serve him. But my focus, because if your focus is on the things of the world, when you lose them, boy, it's going to be very frustrating. So my focus is on Jesus, looking at Jesus, but he gets some doctrine there. The founder and perfecter of our faith. He's the one that established Christianity and the way to heaven, and then he's the one that perfects it. He's the one that does the work in our life so that we can have salvation. We just accept it. He's the one developing that in us, all right? The perfecter of our faith, who, this is speaking of Jesus, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. He's saying, listen, he's an example. You look to him because he went to the cross, endured absolute embarrassment and shame and unbelievable pain for you and for me to deal with our sin. That's who we look to. Someone who's done it more than just the other witnesses in chapter 11. Look to Jesus. So we've got these witnesses, but those aren't the people we're looking to for encouragement, right? They've done it, but Jesus is the one we're looking to. We're keeping our eye on. And so as the race sometimes get complicated, as it will, I promise you that, your unique race will become tiring, but you focus because you've got to go, you've got to plan, you want to accomplish something. In the same idea as an illustration in any level of athletics, when you've got, I'm a football fan, so the football teams are just starting preparing for the fall season. I've coached before. You don't go into the beginning of the season with the idea of saying, you know what, I hope we only, we win at least one game this year. Now, maybe that's the goal. Maybe you're a brand new, team and you're wanting to. But if you're thinking, I'm good enough and I want to win a championship, you don't start off with the season like, maybe I hope. Your entire goal is what is it going to take to become good enough to win X amount of games or to win that championship. And you look to that goal and everything else you do in life. How you eat, how you run, how you sleep, all the other things in life are going to be filtered. Whether I do it or don't, how much I do it is all going to be based on will it help me accomplish that goal. Same thing in our Christian journey, in this Christian battle, this Christian race we're running. We're going to make sure that our goal is to please God. So we're going to filter everything else through what I'm doing. Is it helping me to please God? Is it holding me back as a weight? Is it a sin that's stopping God from using me? And am I running in endurance? Am I quitting every time things get complicated? Because it will get complicated. So my challenge today is keep your eyes on Jesus. Yeah, we have witnesses that prove you can do this, but keeping your eyes on Jesus is important. And then set aside that weight. Well, it's maybe a good thing, but right now it might be holding you back. Set your priorities right. There's a sin in your life. What is it? Deal with it. And then keep your eyes on Jesus and do not quit, even though sometimes you're really going to want to. Well, I greatly appreciate the privilege you give to me to be part of your day. I hope it's a help and hope you stick with us as we continue our studies through the book of Hebrews. Again, thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again next time.